Hey guys, welcome back to the Casual NBA Fanatic podcast. Now today, it's basically I just wanted to do like a quick recap episode, just kind of summarizing all the breaking news that we've been kind of having, like all the big stuff that's been happening. Just like 3 topics that I thought have been kind of making and like symbolizing this part of the season. Obviously with the NBA season, like during the regular season in particular, it tends to fluctuate in terms of our interest into the NBA. I think now after the trade deadline, with the All-Star game coming up, with the interesting format that we have as well, a few more narratives coming and showing right now, so we do have a bit more to talk about. But the first topic I want to hit off, and something that's kind of annoyed me a little bit recently, is the entire Giannis saga. Now, I know we've been hearing about it continuously, but in terms of just the way Milwaukee and Giannis have kind of gone about things, kind of annoys me in a way. I am someone that really appreciates decisiveness from both a player's party and then also just what a team, like an organization, wants. And in terms of decisiveness, in terms of understanding your direction, like having that just understanding of where you are. And I think with Giannis, like you're in your peak prime years, but you're also not a guy that's set up in 3-4 years' time to be still dominating when KD and Steph and LeBron at that age, the way that they've been able to gracefully transcend to their late 30s. Giannis isn't that type of guy. He hasn't skillfully developed his game too much. Everything's still predicated on just the physical athleticism that he brings, the downhill athleticism. Like, it's nothing, there's not much skill based compared to what those other guys bring to the table. And he just hasn't developed much else. At least with LeBron, it's a very reliable catch and shoot shot. It's a very reliable pull-up shot, like a nice little hezzy 3. Like, those are all skill-based assets that you can get in terms of just reading the floor and making dynamic advantage reads where you don't even need to fully break down the entire defense to make these kick-out reads. Like, you can actually take advantage of small holes in the defense continuously as a passer. Like, Giannis is like pretty surgical, but he's not LeBron surgical in that act. And so I think just understanding your place and the way your career is pictured. And the thing is, Giannis can go about it however he wants, but the indecisiveness is the thing that kind of pissed me off. And then also, same with Milwaukee's side as well. And like, I don't care if people say, oh, he didn't clearly ask, like he didn't stamp that he asked for a trade. It doesn't matter, because the fact is, like, we all know they were looking for trade destinations and trade packages that both mutually fit both parties, and they just couldn't find the one this offseason. And I think it'll be hilarious if we fast track, 5-6 months and Giannis is still looking for a trade quietly during the offseason when the packages might be a bit more bolstered at that time. Like, in terms of like the Instagram posts that we saw, like Giannis, I think he captioned, like, he put like a Wolf of Wall Street clip, and then it kind of said, legends don't chase, they attract. And I just thought that was pretty corny, because you did that like the day of the deadline when teams like realized that you guys weren't serious on their offers. Like when the Porziņģis deal went down, the Warriors were just like, no, we're done. Like, he posted that like literally on the deadline day. I just thought that was pretty corny. Like, if you were really serious about that point of view and you want to chase this one man legacy for one franchise, like, stamp it from the get-go. Don't pitter-patter. Like, I always said Giannis can go about it however he wants, because he's earned that right and that reputation. But he's been, like, to do it onto the deadline day and then to act like as if you weren't trying to chase other destinations to take your talent to, I don't know. I just think you got to own it. And, like, no one has a problem with that either. Like, I have every respect for Giannis if he does want to leave Milwaukee. I think he should leave Milwaukee for his own sake. Like, his second and third best players right now are KPJ and Brian Rollins. And, like, obviously Miles Turner, but, like, come on, man. Like, you don't need to go about it that way. And then Doc Rivers in the post-game kind of making a little bit of fun of Shams too. And just, like, the whole Bucks media kind of endorsing it. I just thought it was all a bit corny. I just think Milwaukee just need to own it at the moment. And I just don't know what the point is in acting like you kind of fooled the media, because you didn't fool anyone. We knew, like, it's been like this for 8 months. Like, Giannis was legit in San Francisco, like, in the off-season. It's been going on for ages. You just couldn't get a deal now. You can't make a deal happen anymore now. So you're just trying to create this new narrative, trying to control this narrative. I don't think it really works. Not that it's a big deal. It's just, I don't know. I thought in professional sports as well, we'd have different ways of going about things. But anyways, I don't think just the fact none of the energy was was there present prior to the deadline. That's what I have a problem with. We all know they were soundly looking at offers, but it just didn't work out. I think in the off season, I would have every hope that Giannis does intend to resume those talks, and I don't think anyone would have a problem with it. Maybe it come off a bit funny now that he's actually stamping on. I think he's coming along to the idea of being a one-man franchise sort of player. Nothing wrong with that. And so that's why there's a perspective here with the no trade outcome. And there's two contexts, again, that Giannis can lead whatever he pleases. All right. So it's either the one-man franchise legacy or it's the fact that Giannis might want to truly amplify his prime for winning. And either one of them is extremely credible. Like, if you talk about the one-man franchises, it's your Kobe's, it's your Tim Duncans, it's your Steph Curry's, it's your Larry Birds, your Magic Johnsons, your Tim Duncans. Did I say Tim Duncan? I think I already said it. Bill Russell's. But the fact is, those guys, maybe not Bill Russell, but those guys were skillfully developed to transcend into their late 30s. Larry and Magic, their bodies broke down. Magic had, off the court, the disease issues, obviously, that kind of derailed his career. But all those guys, developed their skill. Even Tim Duncan, exceptional skill development to actually transcend, to be an All-NBA player when he was 35, 36. So, I just think Giannis has to hone in more on the skill level, especially with how fast-paced and rapidly progressing the talent and skill development level is in the NBA right now. He's got to hone in on that if he really wants to make that and reach the same level of legacy as those other guys, which I don't think he will. But you know what? Either way, I would have a ton of respect if he does go about it that way. But the other part, maybe, I believe Giannis is 4 to 5 years of true superstar level play, and if he was to want to take those talents to another team that is ready to play and contend right now and send Milwaukee to the rebuilding stage, which they'll inevitably have to hit in, again, 6-7 years, I think that's best for both parties, because realistically, with, again, how all these other teams in the NBA are set up, all these rebuilding teams are already 3 years ahead of where you'd need to be, even if you did trade Giannis, a few days ago at the deadline. You still have a long way to go if you are Milwaukee, if you actually want to reach that next phase of contention. And I don't know if they can really build a true contender around Giannis. They just paid Miles Turner big money, and now they're believing in a lot of inefficient guards to lead their play, including Kevin Porter Jr. and Cam Thomas. I love Ryan Rollins, but in terms of KPJ and Cam Thomas, two inefficient guards who really no team wants a part of. I know KPJ has been pretty good this year overall, so I'm not going to throw too much shade there. But in terms of just the overall roster building, it's so far off being anywhere near contending. And it's not just, you have a top tier megastar. That's far from the issue, because you look at teams like OKC, you look at teams like Denver, Dallas in 2024 with Luka. Those teams had top tier megastars, but it's how they were built around them and the actual culture and identity, coaching that makes them different. Giannis is just one tick of the box that they have. And even at that, he's probably the most limited he's definitely the most limited offensively out of the group of megastars. But you know what? The only thing is now, and I think it's funny because overall the teams that were interested in Giannis, I think a lot of those teams, the actual window for that trade to eventually even happen down to the deadline, a lot of it's just going to pass anyways. The Giannis-Steph combination, Steph's turning 39 next year. To be honest, it's out of the cards. Steph is really good for this year. Maybe next year he'll still be great. Maybe it's still a top 10 player in the league. But he's just too old at that point. And there's no point throwing in all your assets for literally 1 year of Steph basketball when he's that old and he's bound to get injured. Giannis, Ant, questionable gamble for the Timberwolves. I think keeping Jaden McDaniels and the move that they made for Ayo Dosunmu, loved it. I think that has a big... I don't know. I just think building a team around those guys, McDaniels, Dosunmu, Naz Reid, you can actually build a culture for longer than Giannis's prime with those guys there. And those are the guys that you need to move as assets for a Giannis deal to happen. I just think it would be very questionable for the Timberwolves organization to fully thrust all of their positive assets and just to have a superstar combo, which we know alone doesn't fit what you need to win a title in today's NBA. But it would be nice to see, obviously. Giannis Heat, decent fit, probably the best fit overall, but to me, I still think, depending on who you'd have to give up, I think Tyler Hero and maybe even Norman Powell, like they'll probably hold you to give up him. I just think either way, you're going to be giving up a lot of perimeter firepower in that deal with either Hero or Powell that you give up. And you're going to have to give up a lot of surrounding assets that have built the culture that they've, had to be at least an average basketball team this season. So I think that's off the cards. But then again, what we will say, Giannis's basic stats might not look as glamorous as previous years, but the guy's per 36 is averaging 35, 12, and 7 on 66% effective field goal percentage. He's played 30 games this year, and the Bucks are still 15 and 15 with him. So he's still super impactful, and really any team, if you trade for Giannis, no one's going to blame you. The Bucks right now, he's missed the past few weeks. Overall, the Bucks without him, they're 6 and 14. So he is super impactful, and he actually creates such a high baseline floor for any team in the NBA, and that's why trading for him would be a pivotal move. I just don't know if Giannis is the type of guy to, if he would really be prone to the inclination of actually changing his play style, being less of that pick and roll dominant guy, being more of a guy that's playing more off-ball types of value roles, honing in on his otherworldly defensive talents. He's just not that guy to me at this point in his career just yet. I think that was one of the rumors that one of the teams actually gave up on trading for him because they didn't know if his ego was fit enough to actually fit against next to another star. And that's actually something that I would think about too. If I was building a team around an Anthony Edwards, you don't know if Giannis is going to be willing to slot into another roster because he is this good and he deserves the ball in his hands as much as he wants. And so I don't know. It's just a weird situation. Milwaukee's in a weird situation too, though. They're 24th in net rating and they're 12th in the East. They're behind Chicago and Charlotte, and their second and third best options are KPJ and Ryan Rollins. So just very limited in the short term for the firepower surrounding him right now. It's just a weird situation, but regardless, Giannis and the Bucks can go about however they want. It's maybe a bit like the mid-2000s era with Kobe and the Lakers, but it'll be interesting to see if they actually resume the trade talks come the off-season time. But we'll see. The next part I wanted to hit off, though, was the All-Star preview. Just a bit of fun, we're going to quickly review some of the All-Star rosters and quickly talk about, obviously Kawhi Leonard. We don't even need to talk about him being a snub anymore. The ratio fix obviously had him in there, and then the international edition ended up being Alperen Şengün for SGA's injury. So the two guys that I would have thought to be the biggest snubs ended up making the team anyways. So just to go through the rosters. So we have the Team USA stars. So this is more or less the young team, the young gunning stars. Scotty Barnes, Devin Booker, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Anthony Edwards, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Johnson, and Tyrese Maxey. It's basically your young guys. You're basically your first-time All-Stars, or the guys that max will have 3 All-Star appearances to their name, except for D-Book. Your Team USA stripes, though. More of your beloved guys that are playing for these big key franchises and just the biggest reputations in the NBA that are from US background. Jaylen Brown, Jalen Brunson, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron James. So you get that big 3. Kawhi Leonard, Donovan Mitchell, and then Norman Powell. So just your more mature guys. So I know Norman Powell's one-time All-Star, but he's pretty old compared to the young guys. And then Team World, the team that is the most talented. You have Giannis, Denny Avdia, Luka Doncic, Shea, who got swapped out for Şengün, Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Pascal Siakam, Karl Anthony Towns, and Victor Wembanyama. And so from what we're going to see, I absolutely love the format, and it's kind of leeching off from last year, but it's a bit more set this time around. Obviously, last time they were a bit wishy-washy with when they were picking the teams. They let the NBA and teams, he picked the teams, and then they told them, pick an international team and then, 2 USA teams. So basically, they're going with the exact same formulas last year, but they're actually making it more of a dedicated structure. And I think I just love the concept. I think it will be more interesting. You have guys like Victor Wembanyama who try to take this game fairly seriously. And, I think Team World is the most talented for sure, but I'm going to take the US stripes team. So that's the more veterans, your LeBron, Steph, KD, Kawhi, Donovan Mitchell, that team. I think the All-Star game is always predicated on dynamic shot making and just overall skill. So I see guys like Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, your All-Star MVP types of guys, just burying and draining tough jumpers the entire time. And that team, I don't think there are any bigs on that USA Stripes team whatsoever. And I think that plays into their advantage to literally just fill up the points total like as fast as possible. It's just a more perimeter-based team. I just think it'll be more fun. I think the Team USA stars might play the hardest with the young guys, but they're just going to miss a lot of shots. Like, I don't know. I think you'll waste a lot of looks on like a guy like Chet Holmgren and Jalen Johnson and Scotty Barnes and like even Cade Cunningham's not the most dynamic shot maker from the perimeter. Like, I think they'll be giving up a lot of shots to weaker shooters. And I just think ball will drop for the US Stripes team. So I'm going to take them. But the other part that went into the All-Star game in terms of just the overall discourse was everything surrounding LeBron and why he made it. Obviously, this is old news, but like, till LeBron retires, he's going to be in the All-Star game no matter what because he's earned that reputation. That's why guys like Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, heck, we even saw Dirk and Dwayne Wade, two guys who didn't achieve anywhere near what LeBron has, and they got All-Star like celebratory seasons, obviously in their last like victory lap seasons, obviously, but they still got that respect too. And like a guy like LeBron, who's arguably the GOAT and to me the most talented player to ever play this game, he's gonna get that right till he's done. And like the fact is, like the dude is still playing at, I'd still consider him like a fringe top 10 to 15 player in the league. I reckon he's around that range, but he's still a superstar in my eyes. So I don't think by any means he's ever going to be missing out on any All-Star game. Whether he retires end of this year or he retires next year, another 2 years, who knows? He'll be making the All-Star game every single year he's in the league. And I loved the NBA actually putting him in there, even not even just as a fill-in. Because the thing is, LeBron shouldn't get any pity votes as like he's a substitute for someone that's injured or the ratio fixed with Kawhi. He doesn't deserve that either. He deserves to be a shoe-in fit every single year. That's just my opinion, because it's just a fan voting contest at the end of the day. It's a popularity contest. It's what the fans want to see. It's supposed to be a spectacle for us fans to enjoy watching, and we enjoy watching LeBron James. Whether he's old as hell, but whatever it is, we want to see LeBron on the floor, and that's what we got. Really happy with the NBA choosing to do that. And the last part I wanted to talk about with the entire All-Star weekend was the fact that we didn't break past conferencing when it comes to voting, especially if this format becomes successful with Team USA and the Team World, and you have like the youth and then the veterans. If this format is really successful this year, just the conference talent discrepancy, like it's playing too much of a factor in who actually gets selected into the All-Star game. Because if the ratio didn't need fixing and Kawhi and Şengün both missed out, not that I'm the biggest fan of Şengün as much anymore. He hasn't been playing very well recently. His impact, especially defensively, just getting exploited much more easily. The shot touch as well, especially the perimeter stuff that we might have seen at the start of the year, it's all gone at the moment. But he did deserve to be an All-Star in my eyes. Like, I still think Houston is pretty competitive. They have their flaws, but they are very competitive. Still a team that I think would be like the 5th or 6th best contender in the NBA right now. Big part with what Şengün can do in terms of load carrying, the advantages created for that roster. Kawhi Leonard, you don't even need to talk about him. He's been one of the most stellar shot makers and just overall unstoppable, unguardable scorers in the NBA once again. Guys like James Harden missed out too, and like these are guys that if they played in the East, like they'd be shoe-in fits. Heck, even Austin Reeves would be very, very questionable to get like a shoe-in fit over, a Scotty Barnes for say. I just think, it's a bit of a shame that we see these old veterans that are clearly outplaying a ton of guys from the East still missing out. So I think the NBA has to think, because conferencing will always be a factor. It's just for the All-Star game. Again, it's a spectacle. It's the players that you want to see. Quite frankly, I'm so happy Norman Powell got an All-Star vote. But guys like him, like you can't tell me Norman Powell deserves to be in the All-Star game over James Harden. I just think there's a bit that needs to be cleared up in that sense. But anyways, I'm actually really happy with what the All-Star weekend is cheering up to be, mostly just for the All-Star game. It's the only thing I really pay attention to out of anything at the moment. And if it's anything like we think it will be, should be pretty fun. Now, last little segment, I want to quickly dive into the trade deadline. So I'm just listing the biggest deals, obviously, to me, just what was actually interesting. I'm not going to go... I would have made an entire podcast if I was going into like all the actual decent trades, but we're just going to harp on the big ones and we're just going to be grading them, offering grades for both teams. And we're going to be starting off with the Anthony Davis trade from Dallas to Washington. So I gave Dallas a B for this one. And just quick note, like none of the grades are very interesting. You don't have like an F tier or like a super A+ type of trade. The trades were very mutual in my opinion. So I gave Dallas a B for the Anthony Davis trade. I just think it had to happen, especially with how dominant Cooper Flag has been in this stretch. Like you have to just build around him now, give him the keys, give him the actual assets to grow as far as next year. Like get as many picks as you can in general. I know the picks weren't incredibly great, but also you are freeing up some sort of cap room, bringing up Chris Middleton. I think he should be a free agent by the end of this year too. No obligation to pay him off. Davis's body's breaking down. I think in terms of also decisiveness, when I was talking about I love decisiveness, I think the Mavs with a deal like this, they're just taking the initiative early, being proactive rather than reactive. And I absolutely love that for Dallas. So they get a B for this trade for prioritizing future planning. Washington, though, they get a B+. Slightly better. And it's because for me, I only really see a lot of positives out of this. And obviously there's the health concerns, but you can't really, hypotheticals are hard to judge. And it's just off paper value, just false value, just looking at what they look like on paper, just the ability for an AD and Trey unit, if they were to stay healthy, like if they make a playoff run, which they inevitably will with a star duo like that, that gives the young guys valuable playoff experience. And I think that can get sometimes overwritten with how valuable that is. And in terms of just playing like teams at their absolute best, like even if you get kicked out in the first round, that's a gut punch to your ego if you are a young team who's like young and gunning every single night out in the regular season. I just think it's invaluable that what you can get from just any sort of playoff experience. They'll thrust them into there as well. So I think that's a pretty safe trade for them in terms of what they want to how they want to nurture their young talent. The only thing is though, I don't know how much I believe in Washington's young core as of right now. Like, as in, I don't know if like they can really go into this contending phase just yet. But then again, I don't know how serious they really are in the contending. Maybe they are satisfied. I just think Bob Carrington's got a little bit more juice than what some people might think. Like, Alex Sarr's turned out to be pretty good in his second year. Keyshawn George is pretty fun and electric to watch. Trey Johnson's like a pretty great moving shooting prospect that you do believe in to actually translate to contending basketball at some point when the efficiency starts to drop a bit more and he can hit shots on like all different types of movement, and that's really special to get from a rookie. So that's the only thing is I don't know how much I believe in their young core right now, but if they do, and honestly, if Davis and Trey are more or less zoned out for the rest of the season, they just have to hit on this upcoming draft, which they might believe that they can do, then their young core is set and they can look to actually contend and win games. Not a bad trait for Washington to actually just believe in what they have built already and just go straight into it. So they get a B+ for me, especially with how cheap the deal was. Next up, the Porziņģis trade. For me, the Warriors get a C+ for this one. And they add decent firepower in theory, like again on paper, like they add decent firepower and star level to their team. And KP kind of like he just fits really well into what they want to do offensively as well. Defensively, he falls more into that quit and post type of, just low drop coverage guy. He's not a guy that will come up to level and switch all the time like your Draymonds and now Horfords. But offensively, just the clear spacing. He brings a mismatch attacking element, which can kind of secure your half-court offense a little bit more. And he does it at your front court position, which is really nice. The only thing is, I know we talked about hypotheticals, but like, we have to state them. Like, there are a lot of health concerns and durability concerns when it comes to Kristaps Porziņģis. The postseason last year was absolutely dreadful. I think in the last series against the Knicks, he averaged like 5 points a game. And he could barely play. He was coming off the bench every night. I know he dealt with like a undiagnosed illness or something like that, but so obviously he was plagued by something, but there tends to always be something with KP. Same thing in the 2024 finals. Like, he looked really good in one of those games, but more or less that series, again, when he did come back, wasn't amazing. And the only thing with like the Warriors, why I'd say it was an average trade, is that it didn't cost them much. They always had to get rid of Kuminga. I don't really think Buddy Hield's this positive asset really by much. But the thing is, I just don't think it was transformative for this year. And I don't think this actually changes their chances of even being like a top 4 seed in the West this year. I just think the health concerns will butt them out once again. And it is a pretty huge risk. I mean, Butler's out for this year. Like KP, like you don't know what the health is going to be like. This is more of a play for how they will look next year. But again, now with Butler being 36, coming back from an injury that typically players and historically players don't really get back to their typical level from, especially players that are physically and athletically leaning like Jimmy Butler, leaning on him and Kristaps Porziņģis to be a second and third options for Steph Curry when Steph is turning 39 next year. So I'm not too big of a fan for that. But Atlanta, again, not much great on that side either. They get a C for me. I understand the deal, but they didn't even get a single pick from this deal. And you are trading a guy with all-star level talent. I know his trade value is low because he hasn't played much this year. But, they didn't even see any of the benefits of KP's fit with a team like what Atlanta were building. This is a team with very average level front court play finishing. Onyeka Okongwu, Jalen Johnson, guys that can struggle as catch and shoot shooters, guys that can't really execute on their post-ups and elbow touches anywhere near as efficiently as KP. They didn't even really see any of those benefits because, again, unhealthy, but they didn't even try and see it. And I'm pretty sure Atlanta are trying to win games this year too. I know they're not trying to have championship hopes, but I'm sure they're still trying to fight for a top 6 seed. And they just didn't even say that out. And they bring in 2 guys that, to be honest, I think bringing in a guy like Kuminga, a guy that is another athletic, young talent forward wing, it's just redundant. Kuminga demands the same touches that Jalen Johnson does, but he's nowhere near as good as Jalen Johnson. Can't see the floor as well as him, doesn't get to the cup as well as him. Jalen's just a much more dynamic and more purposeful athlete with the ball in his hands. But it just becomes redundant. It's Kuminga's is he a positive asset in your locker room? I don't think so. So, obviously he fits the identity, so that's fine, but the redundancy is where the question marks arise because he's not a guy that can fill in gaps. Obviously, your identity can be lengthy athletes with, decent motors, whatever. But Kuminga brings the skill set and the play style and the mindset of your 1A guy, and he's just nowhere near close to that. So who knows? We'll see. Maybe they'll give him a bit more time, a bit more leeway, and maybe they'll be patient with him. Who knows? And the other thing is just the guard rotation is just extremely weak, and this trade did not address that whatsoever. It actually stocked up on guys that are shakier ball handlers in general. You don't trust Buddy Hield and Jonathan Kuminga to be initiating offense for you if you actually are trying to win games. Obviously, their philosophy to the athletic, lengthy guys, that is clearly shifting, and they certainly addressed that, but trade was just weird. I don't think it was positive. I don't think it was overly negative, but honestly, if I had to pick, I'd say it was really average trade for Atlanta. Next deal is the Jaren Jackson trade. Memphis got a B+ for me, and it's because decisiveness. They understand their situation, and they were being decisive, not and we know they were trying to offload Ja Morant. Obviously, that trade couldn't eventuate because no party was actually interested in trading for him. But we know that they were trying to offload him, but also sending Jaren Jackson, that completely caught me off guard. And just sending him somewhere more lively for his career so he can start competing next year. Obviously, the Jazz might be trying to tank. We saw the Orlando game, and who knows, the NBA might end up reprimanding teams that do things like that in the future, where obviously Lowry and Jaren Jackson absolutely destroying the game. You just take them out and you purposely lose the game. That's not good basketball. It's not positive environment by any means, but what Utah are building is important and is credible and deserves something to believe in as far as next season. And sending Jaren to a place that is fruitful is really, really good to treat your star. And I really appreciated that. As someone that does really appreciate what Jaren Jackson brings to the game too. They also get 3 firsts in the deal. Extremely hard to find. In the Giannis deal, that's the baseline for the Giannis deal, and you're getting 3 firsts for Jaren Jackson. And they get some young guys who fit their identity, and Memphis's identity, we know, hard-nosed, hard-working, scrappy dudes, nice physical frames, low center of gravity too, and they get that with Walter Clayton, Taylor Hendricks, I know these guys offensively have really struggled this year, but in terms of the frames and the prospects that they were, can't forget what Taylor Hendricks was just a few years ago. Hopefully he finds his footing in a setting where they'll give him more touches. Georges Niang and Cole Anderson, again, they fit the hard-working, physical, scrappy guys too. So they're just, again, topping up on the identity, but also addressing their situation perfectly. Hendricks and Clayton, these are guys that are real future prospect additions to what you might be able to build like real winning foundation on. Who knows? You don't know. But at least you get back those guys and 3 first-round picks, and you get in some culture setters like Georges Niang. He is a culture setting veteran as well as Carl Anderson, who you're bringing back to Memphis. Really love the deal for them. And again, understanding your situation is one of the best traits a front office can have. And they exhibited that truly in this case. Jaren, again, I love the respect that they actually gave to him. He's too good and he's too committed of an athlete for what Memphis are in as their current situation with Ja Morant as the inconsistent 1A. Never on the floor, hasn't really progressed as a player. And Jaren's too good to be the sidekick for a team like that. Send him somewhere where they're happy to actually allow him to be the foundation block. The Jazz, they get a B- for me. Again, equally is great. Like I think this was an above average trade for Utah. I just think maybe there are a few question marks. This is just, I love their decisiveness. Again, it's more, do I believe in what they believe in? And look, it's a decisive move because obviously Danny Ainge believes in the Keontae Larry Marketing combo as like real competitive foundation, maybe for a title. The only thing is I just don't necessarily agree as much. And the only thing is it was a decisive move. That's the end of story. And, it does fix their defensive concerns, especially with Kessler out for this season. But the thing is, they're not looking to be competitive. It's more competitive for next season, but they're topping up on a really physical lineup with a ton of offensive skill that they can actually mix and match next season. And they'll be a really fun team to watch. Rebounding this year without Kessler will be an absolute struggle. And the lineup configurations with Larry and Jaren, like they'll get absolutely reamed and destroyed on the glass. But as soon as you get back Kessler next year, they can throw out these fun lineups with Larry at the 3, Jaren at the 4, Kessler at the 5. They will dominate the glass and, put back second chance opportunities. They might struggle mobility-wise on the defensive end. So a lot of question marks, I think. I think either way, whatever lineup they go with, especially if they keep all 3 of those bigs, it'll be a little bit weird. I don't know. I think it's, yeah. Anyways, they do get in some win now plays in this deal as well. And more for the fact that they're the worst defensive team in the league. You bring in Jaren Jackson, a former defensive player of the year, who could kind of anchor the paint a bit more, credibility there. And they bring in defensive talent in Vince Williams on the perimeter. Exceptional get, who is really undervalued. He was a chucking into the deal. And then they've got back Jock Landale, but they sent him away in a 3-team deal. They got back cash considerations, but they also got back Lonzo Ball. So just more defensive talent upgrades that they were making this trade deadline. And that's why, again, worst defensive team adds defensive talent. That equals a very, very decent deal for them. A lot of question marks makes it more or less just an average trade in the books. That's how I perceived it. And then the last trade I wanted to hit off was the James Harden trade. I made a quick reel about it before. Literally the most equal trade I actually thought from this trade deadline. So the Clippers get a B. Understanding your situation, I absolutely loved that for most franchises. And that was the common theme that you saw with a ton of these franchises. Just understanding your situation with Harden's age and just the financial demands that he would have put onto them for the future as well as such a brutally aging star. Not as in like he's declining a ton, but he's just entering his full late 30s. He's aging like a lot. And for the Clippers, like I'm a huge Darius Garland fan. I actually think he's better than James Harden when they're both healthy. Like if you take this year's version of James Harden, you take last year's version of Garland, when they're both at their peak healthy stages as of right now, I'm taking Darius Garland. And obviously, for the Clippers though, just understanding that their roster will go to an inevitable downfall. They're not one of the top 2 championship contenders. They weren't ever going to reach there. That's why also just the Zubac deal too. Like overall, what the Clippers did in their direction was really good. But also bringing in Garland, you bring in a guy who has 6 to 7 years of possible all-star level play. Really clean, really efficient, speed-based advantage creator, one of the most skilled and polished passers and shot makers that you'll find in the league. Absolutely love what Darius Garland can do. And like, he brings a less tempo stalling type of offensive initiation playstyle. And that's with obviously like the speed-based advantage creation stuff that he brings that James Harden didn't bring too much of. That's why I think the ceiling will be a bit more fun. In the regular season floor, like, you can milk a lot more margins when you play faster paced. That's just how I view things as well. And they've got a lot of athletes. Zubac is out the door as well now. They bring in Isaiah Jackson. We'll get some decent minutes too, I'm sure, as an athletic center. So for the Clippers, I actually think it was a pretty good deal. Like, instead of letting Harden walk, you actually bring in a guy who brings in a ton of upside if you can get him healthy. The Cavs get a B from me too. A lot of people think the Cavs win. I think that was consensus from this deal that they won the trade. I think a lot of recency bias towards Garland's injury. Like, we don't understand what he's going to be like when he is healthy. But I'm a big Garland believer. And the Cavs get the same grade as the Clippers because, again, like, they're being decisive. Not that I agree too much in what they chose. And for me, I thought this symbolized the fact that the Cavs are kind of choosing stability and safety over true upside. Like, the trade-off for me, like, when you're picking stability, like, if you're picking floor over ceiling, it's a pretty neutral trade-off. It's not positive or negative. Like, it's pretty much the same. I think it kind of deprives the true championship ceiling to me, but as a playoff team, they're going to be a stronger threat, especially in the first 2 to 3 rounds. And I subtly think the Cavs can actually rise to a level where they will look like the team most capable to win 4 rounds out of any team in the East. Currently, I think the Knicks are built for that the most, but they're pretty soft as well when it comes up to some really hard-nosed physicality games, which we know the Cavs can rise up to. They're a bit more skilled than teams like Detroit is like too, and like, this Harden deal kind of makes it more emphasized too. Harden brings less prone mismatch hunting to the roster because he's just bigger and stronger, and he's got decent instincts when he does lock in, when he's covering isolation or covering closeouts too. It's more just when it's team and off-ball awareness stuff that he'll have to churn into a bit more. But anyways, they're picking stability, and you can't really hate them for that, especially with the treacherous run that they've had with Darius Garland's health history when it comes to postseasons. It's happened every single year since he first made All-Star, and like, honestly, you can't blame them. And that's why the thing is also they bring in James Harden, who's been better than Darius Garland this year, and that's not even close. He's been absolutely phenomenal, and I think the Cavs, they're just sick of making the DG health gamble every single year. Can't blame them. And again, just the lineup stability that Harden will bring you in terms of just the firepower department. You know you're going to get a star level of talent every night come postseason, because Harden historically is always there. Because he plays like less athletically inclined. So his body takes less of a toll. And that is valuable when you want your star player there every night. And that's why come playoff time, I think they'll reap the benefits in the early rounds especially. And the only thing is, though, for Harden, the Harden deal for Cleveland is, again, depriving their ceiling a little bit. Because if you can get Garland healthy, I actually think that's when their offense looks the most poetic. But the other thing is they'll just have to pay Harden big money into his really late 30s. And that becomes really tough. And that's why, like, the next 2 years, like, they've got to really contend, going hard. Especially while the East is a lot weaker than the West. Got to go in really hard for this title in the next 2 years. They get a big physical perimeter creator right now. And a guy, again, less defensive hunting that you'll be prone to. So the deal was pretty neutral, but it was an above average deal. A lot of mutual interest for both parties. Now that wraps up just a quick segment that I wanted to quickly run through. Just a really exciting period. A ton of news that have been dropping down. A lot of breakdowns in terms of like the trades. And then just a ton of news and a ton of narratives forming around the league. It's fun just to quickly run this through. I'm probably going to come out with something next week. Maybe as we get past the All-Star game and as we look towards the postseason and see what our contenders tend to look like. I appreciate you guys for tuning into this one, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.